Glad to have you back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. We'll start our conversation now, and on the program today, we'll be assessing Nigeria's compliance level with the International Financial Reporting Standards. And I'm being joined on the program by the CEO of Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, Mr. Jim Obazi. Mr. Obazi, good morning, and thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you here, especially since a lot of companies have adopted the International Financial Reporting Standard, which was actually really touted in the early parts of the 2010, 2011. But since its adoption 3 years ago, what has the compliance level really been like?
Excellent, thank you. The adoption of IFRS by this administration was expected to be in a phase program. We have listed and significant public interest entities cut over to IFRS in January 1, 2012. The other public interest entities, including charities, they cut over to IFRS January 1, 2013. Then small and medium-sized entities were to cut over in 2014, while we'll begin to look at IPSAS for government in 2015. So when we're talking about assessment for compliance level, we are actually looking at that of the 2012, which financial statement we saw in 2013, and then that of the 2013, the financial statement we saw in 2014. We gave ourselves, as a country, a huge pass mark, because even the International Accounting Standards Board came here and they celebrated the efforts Nigeria was putting. That's
for you're talking about the roadmap now that was actually started with regards to phases of the entities that's, with complying to this reporting standard.
Yes.
So if you say, at least for the public entities and for some of the non-for-profit organizations that actually adopted the IFRS, you give yourself a pat on the back, how much percentage of compliance level was recorded?
Okay, for listed and significant public interest entities, those people who were organizations that were expected to cut over in January 2012, which a financial statement we saw in 2013. For that, we're looking at not less than 80% compliance, because no regulatory agency is allowed to begin to deal with institutions now who, up to this level, they have not been able to produce a IFRS compliant financial statement, because they were expected to have cut over in 2012. Now, for other public interest entities, which include government business entities that are expected to report as if they are private sector entities, we call them government business entities that are reporting under proprietary interest. Okay, that's like my office, we are proprietary interests of government. We are expected to run as if we are private sector entities. Then fiduciary interest, which is like NDIC, AMCON, those were part of the 2013. And if you look at that bracket, we're looking at 60% compliance, because charities, with churches, mosques, NGOs, in the entire pack, so their level is rather reduced, but that of listed and significant public interest is up in the game.
Okay, so why was there so much of a challenge for it not to, because that's 60% as against 80% of the public that, the council was able to achieve. So why was it, that's kind of like 20% differential?
Okay, if you look at listed and significant public interest entities, they are quoted in capital markets. Okay, a number of them report to foreign jurisdictions. Some of them are subsidiaries of entities that have complied with IFRS. So it was an easy sell. But the challenge was that there was depth of knowledge in international financial reporting standards, not only in Nigeria, but across the globe, actually. So a number of jurisdictions are struggling with it. But for the 60%, which we're looking at for other public interest entities, which include charities, you have to have that huge drop, because charities themselves were not preparing financial statement. This is the very first time in Nigeria that we're actually requesting non-for-profit entities to begin to report financial statements. Then government business entities that have proprietary interests of government. You are beginning to see government organizations prepare accounts now. It was not the fashion in those days, but this administration have put his foot down and say they must prepare financial statement and report as when due. So is that struggling that we are seeing? Government business entities embracing, not-for-profit embracing. Other public interest entities are also doing closely with, but they were not expecting this level of push from government.
Okay, so now let's talk about how much of the challenges that was experienced domestically and internationally, although we didn't start to notice most of that until in 2014, and that was from June up until now. But how much of that is going to likely affect, most of these companies complying with the IFRS?
The companies having issues with IFRS, they have no choice now but to comply, because one, if you are looking for investors to come into a jurisdiction, they want to know whether the financial reporting structure within your jurisdiction is such that is comparable internationally. Of course, people are doing away with national standards because there will be no opportunity for us to consolidate so easily without restating the financial statement from the jurisdictions that are adopting national GAAP. So in Nigeria, ordinarily there were challenges, but the beauty is coming out now because we have no choice. It's affecting our educational system. Okay, because the students will now have to deal with IFRS. It's affecting our comfort levels and assurance levels. The auditing firms, other professionals, have to look closely at international financial reporting standards and their requirements. The entities themselves, even the government, if you're interested in enhancing your foreign direct investment, you'll be ready to deal with the financial reporting rules.
So talking about foreign direct investment, I know that was one of the reasons why the federal government really pursued ensuring that most of the public entities adopt this IFRS to help boost foreign direct inflows and, of course, encourage economic growth. But how much of that has actually been recorded since the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria started?
Okay. You probably need to know the genesis. It's the move towards a truly sustainable and transparent economy that actually led many jurisdictions to begin to consider a number of options. Nigeria, the government of Nigeria felt that it is important to persuade the legal foundation of the economy. And to do that, they had to either set up economic institutions or they strengthen some. So the government decided to set up the Financial Reporting Council, which is an economic institution, to become a unified regulatory body that can deal with accounting, auditing, actuarial evaluation, and corporate governance practices in Nigeria. Now, if you are a close watcher of the news, of course, they say you are, Nigeria has been rated for the second time now as the #1 investment destination in Africa. It is partly because our financial reporting system is now comparable globally. They don't need to pay rent. They don't need to hire other consultants to begin to help them review the financial reports that come from Nigeria before they now begin to decide on whether to invest in Nigeria or not. That's a plus for the country.
Mr. Abbas, it's interesting that you actually mentioned that because, you see, there have been so many issues surrounding public sector accounting in recent times. Of course, you know some of those issues. Now, let me talk about what last year, with the World Bank Global Competitiveness Report indicated that Nigeria ranked 127 out of 144 countries with regards to weak institutions. And of course, you already mentioned it. But as the regulator, what is the FRC actually doing to ensure that we have a sanitized system where we don't have issues with proper accounting?
Thank you. Any government that is interested in improvement and bringing foreign investors to his jurisdiction will have to deal with two things majorly. We have to deal with the financial reporting infrastructure and deal with corporate governance. Okay, this law is supporting. Now, the first one is what we are dealing with now, which is the financial reporting. Okay, for the first time, government is actually asking public sector entities to begin to prepare financial statements. The public sector entities are used to prepare some forms of reports, but they were not financial statements that you can actually place significant reliance, because there are three groups. You know, a number of us look at public sector and say, whole government's a big issue. Government is too big to handle. But government can easily be broken down into three. You have governmental funds, which is accounts of ministries. Then you have proprietary funds, which is government business entities that are supposed to run as if they're private sectors. Then you have fiduciary funds. Those are agencies. Those are government businesses.
So it's mostly the governmental funds that a lot of people seem to be having issues with.
Yes, it's the governmental fund. And in governmental fund, they are not to apply international financial reporting standards. They are to apply international public sector accounting standards. It's called IPSAS. And that's for government. First challenge that they faced was their enabling law. Okay, for you to deal with IPSAS, states will have to review their financial management law, while the federal government will have to review its financial management act. Now, it's only Lagos State really that have actually reviewed his financial management law. The federal government is also reviewing his financial management act. And if you look at the accountant general, he's called his colleagues recently, and they are seriously trying very hard to ensure that in 2015 they are able to prepare accrual-based financial statements.
And while all of this is going on, the country is losing funds because you're not having a proper disclosure of the amount of funds that have actually been remitted or amount of funds that have actually been spent by either a parastatal ministry or an agency.
Well, I cannot say the country is not losing funds. It's just that the citizens are not having the benefits of financial reporting. For instance, Nigerians are going to the poll to vote now. So how do you vote? You vote based on what? Because you are supposed to have the financial statement of Lagos State, for instance. And then you say, this is the inflow of resources into Lagos State, and this is the outflow. So you can compare one state with the other. Okay, for now, you can't look at financial statement. A number of things that you look at are just, are not a financial reporting issue that will enable you to take meaningful decision as a voter. If I see a number of bridges that are constructed, a number of markets that are built, that is not enough. I need to know what was your inflow during these years that you managed the economy, and what were your outflows, and where were these resources deployed.
Okay, so now your job as a regulator is to ensure that the public entities, non-for-profit organizations, promptly turn in their financial statements and in conformity with IFRS.
Yeah, or as the case may be.
As the case may be. But have there been situations where some of these entities have failed to actually turn in, or maybe they turn in and it's not as at when due? Has the council ever had any cause to mete out punishment, for instance, or to sanction?
Yeah, you see, they are currently, because the introduction of IFRS is relatively new, because the phase ended just last year, phase 3, and then the IPSAS is this year. We are still babysitting these entities, because you don't go with a stick, you first of all go with carrot, especially when several jurisdictions are struggling with it. Don't forget that the US is just trying to find its way into IFRS as we speak, and a number of jurisdictions are struggling with it. So you cannot just go right away and begin to punish. We gave a 1-year window. If you have to cut over in 2013, okay, then by 2014 will be the window where we will do a lot of education, a lot of encouragement to ensure that you comply. We also pass through their primary regulators, actually, because if you are looking at insurance businesses, you go through National Insurance Commission to say, well, we want your entities that report directly to you to ensure that they bring their financial statement as and when due. Of course, the Nigerian capital market is also insisting that they bring in their financial statement. We don't go with the stick right away because it's a babysitting era.
Okay, you've been talking about this transition, the national roadmap, I'm guessing, for all of the entities to actually begin to adopt it. I think the third phase is supposed to be for the small and medium-scale enterprises. But just before we get to that, why was it decided that the country needed this roadmap?
You see, the foreign direct investment flow was rather, on the downward trends, because investors are interested in disclosures. Okay, they are also interested in seeing that they can actually pin down that management have credibility. If we prepare a financial statement using national rules that are not international, it means that the financial statement published in Nigeria will be guided by a different set of rules. If you are seeing 100 as a figure in the financial statement of a Nigerian entity, it will be difficult for you to understand or relate it with an 100 from that is prepared using international financial reporting standards. So you needed to now rent a consultant to begin to convert these figures to international figures. Who is interested in that? There are so many jurisdictions wherein people can put in their money. If they know that they are going to be passing through all of these TT problems, they will not be interested. We need to deal with that squarely, and the government was interested in that. Okay, then credibility of management. The figures that are being churned out, you will not be talking about national gap. Nobody is interested in talking about national gap now in a globalized economy. So definitely government said we need to deal with this squarely. Okay, we needed to also ensure that we lower the cost of capital. Because if you are bringing in foreign money, or you are even asking local investors to invest in your company, and it's such that your figures are such that they are guided by some strange rules that they may not be able to relate with, it will be difficult to get their money. But now it's international, and they believe that it's some comfort and assurance is coming for them.
So that means it should also have improved our competitiveness level on the global front. And if that is the case, we should be seeing improved figures as against what we saw from last year with the World Bank report saying that Nigeria was 127, or yes, out of 144 of the countries assessed in terms of weak institutions and some other factors that are actually, put out.
Yeah, like I said, dealing with these issues like is like dealing with an elephant, which you cannot actually just define, but you have to describe. Now, other than financial reporting, you have corporate governance.
Transparency and accountability as well.
But the major problem in corporate governance really is that Nigeria is currently having a mismatch. Okay, in corporate governance, I can just lead you into what corporate governance actually talk about. Corporate governance refers to the roles of persons that are charged with supervision, control, and direction of an entity. Now, internationally, or what we are seeing globally, is that corporate governance is either bank-based or market-based. When it is market-based, it means that they raise money from the capital market and from debt market. But if it's bank-based, it means that it's bank that an insurance company that is actually giving them the money. If it's market-based, then there's wide dispersal. The information will be open. The market can punish. But if it's bank-based, there will be insider. Even the bank will have to appoint somebody on the board, and the market cannot really punish. But in Nigeria, we have a mismatch. We are running a market-based, and we are seeing all the characteristics of bank-based. So if you are looking at Nigerian competitiveness, you worry about corporate governance, because that is what is actually doing perception and competitiveness. And that government is also tackling, in 2015.
Okay. So let's take a quick break now on the program, Mr. Bazi. We'll come back and we'll continue this conversation. When we do come back, we'll focus on that other aspect of the roadmap phase transition that we know is going to be focusing on the small and medium enterprise, which is a very interesting one because we have a lot of SMEs in Nigeria. Yeah. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. I've been having a conversation with the Chief Executive Officer, Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, Mr. Jim Obaze, and we've been assessing Nigeria's compliance level to international financial reporting standards. The conversation will continue in just a moment. Please join us again.